welcome back to the Now Show, Nish Kumar.
Hello. Last week, Tony Blair weighed in on the Labour leadership race. Blair claimed that campaigning on a traditional leftist platform would be a mistake for the Labour Party. And it seems to me very strange that the term left-wing is used as an insult. It's designed to show that someone's out of touch. Even my mother recently described my comedy in unflattering terms, which is still, admittedly, a step forward, given all she'd previously said was stop. She said, Nish, you're a left-wing comedian. When I asked her why that was a problem, she said, well, all stand-up comedians are left-wing. It's boring. Now, I have no idea if all stand-up comedians are left-wing, but I have a theory. Guys, I think it's hard to write right-wing comedy. And I know, because I have been trying. This is the best I could come up with for right-wing comedy. Hey, don't you hate it when you start earning over £100,000 a year and you move up an income tax bracket? It doesn't work. Here's the thing. I think stand-up comedy is just one of those art forms wherein it's easier to express left-wing beliefs. But over the whole of culture, it balances itself out. I would argue that as much as no one wants to see a right-wing comedian, even fewer people want to watch a left-wing action film. I don't want to watch the Avengers apply to the UN Security Council to pass a resolution so that they can fight Ultron. And I certainly don't want to watch Iron Man get bogged down in a diplomatic quagmire. Largely because that was the plot of Iron Man 2, and that film sucked. Left-wing people have some stuff, right-wing people have some stuff. Left-wing people have comedy and folk music, and that's largely because a right-wing folk song would be harrowing. Because a right-wing folk song would just be, my dad worked in a factory, the factory closed down, but the factory was unprofitable, so good. The fear of the term left-wing is also the legacy of the end of the Cold War. In the 1980s, being left-wing was synonymous with the failures of communism, and guys, people hate communists. When I was a kid, my friend and I used to play a video game called Command & Conquer Red Alert. It was a really popular military strategy game for your PCs. The premise of the game was that Einstein had travelled back in time to kill Hitler, which I think we can all agree is classic Albert. Anyway, so far, so plausible. But because Hitler was dead, communism spread all across Europe, and in the game, you controlled a force fighting the dreaded Reds, right? This is how much people hate communists. A video game aimed at children was essentially based on the premise, thank God for Hitler. But here's the thing, and this is an exclusive for the Now Show. It is not the 1980s anymore. We're in an economic mess which is the consequence of 2 decades of unfettered capitalism. We've got private companies running public services in a hugely inefficient way. Life is getting worse for the poorest people in this country. Between 2013 and 2014, over 900,000 people were using food banks. And the whole financial crisis was blamed on excessive governmental spending. That's the equivalent of someone coming to your house, taking a dump on your living room floor, and then blaming you for cleaning it up. But even with all of this, no one is challenging the status quo in mainstream politics. The gutless leadership of the Labour Party has thus far refused to make the case that any of this amounts to a problem. Look, if it feels like all comedians are left-wing, maybe that's partly because comedy is naturally drawn towards sympathising with the underdog, and the left in Britain is currently as low as a dog can go. But comedians should not be confused with political leaders. Guys, why on earth was Russell Brand hired to present a documentary about economics? I'm not knocking the guy. I think he's very funny and he has nice hair like a lovely horse. But the man is not an economist. They could have got the Cambridge Professor of Economics, Ha-Joon Chang, to present the film. This is a man who spent 10 years writing lucid and informative books about why this system of unregulated capitalism is ultimately not good for overall economic development. He's brilliant, qualified, and has starred in literally 0 remakes of Arthur. So with all this going on, it might be time to ask the question, is it time for someone to defy old Uncle Tony and start campaigning on a platform that at least comes closer to traditional leftist values? That person may well be Jeremy Corbyn, but whoever it is, to quote the political philosopher and singer Ms. Sheryl Crow, I think a change would do you good. Thank you very much.
Now, apart